Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time, we're really going deep with Network of Lies, the epic saga of Fox News, Donald Trump, and the battle for American democracy by Brian Stelter.
Oh, yeah. This one is a doozy.
It really is, and he gets right to the heart of, well, so much of what we talk about on the show, like the relationship between media, politics, and truth, and particularly how those things collided during the whole crazy 2020 election and, all the stuff that came after.
Yeah, the fallout from that election. I mean, we're still feeling it today.
We really are. Stelter, for folks who don't know, he was a media correspondent at CNN for years, so he's like deep in this world.
Oh, he knows his stuff.
And he did a ton of research for this book. I'm talking countless interviews, like digging through court documents, even got his hands on private messages between some of the biggest players at Fox.
Wow, that's impressive.
It's crazy the stuff he uncovered.
Yeah, you can really tell he did his homework.
For sure. And what I found really interesting is how he structured the book.
Yeah, how do you approach it?
Well, he starts with the Dominion lawsuit.
Oh, right.
Which, if you remember, was that massive legal battle between Dominion voting systems and Fox News.
Yeah, over Fox spreading all those election lies.
Exactly. And that lawsuit, it's not just some background noise in the story. It's like the key that unlocks everything.
How so?
Because to defend themselves, Fox had to hand over tons of internal emails, text messages, like all this stuff that showed what their executives knew about the election lies and when they knew it.
So it's like we get this peek behind the curtain.
Exactly. We see all the machinations, the private conversations, the panic as things start to unravel.
That's wild.
It is, and it sets the stage for the whole book.
Makes sense. So where does the book go from there?
Well, the first chapter, the Fox News coup and the Dominion lawsuit, kicks off with this bombshell scene. Trump having dinner with Suzanne Scott and Jay Wallace.
Who are they?
They're top executives at Fox. And get this dinner happened on the very night Trump got indicted for the January 6th conspiracy.
No way. That's some timing.
It really is. And the purpose of the dinner, to try to convince Trump to attend the Republican debate.
So they're trying to wrangle him into this debate while also, facing this huge lawsuit for spreading the very same election lies he was pushing.
Yep.
That's some serious irony right there.
It's almost too perfect. And it shows, the impossible position Fox was in.
Trying to be Trump's ally while also, trying to save their own skin.
Exactly. And that tension, that conflict, it runs through the entire book.
Makes you wonder what Rupert Murdoch was thinking through all this.
Well, Stelter actually quotes Murdoch in the book saying, well, you can't have it, when Trump demanded 100% loyalty from Fox.
Wow, so even Murdoch was pushing back.
To some extent, yeah. But the book also shows how deeply entangled Fox was with Trump and his supporters.
I can imagine.
And that entanglement, it led to some pretty dramatic consequences.
Like what?
Well, for one, it led to the rise and fall of Tucker Carlson.
Ah, yes, Tucker Carlson, chapter 2, right?
That's the one. The rise and fall of Tucker Carlson.
I mean, he was their biggest star for a while. His show was huge.
Huge. But also hugely controversial.
Oh, yeah, he was always stirring the pot.
Right. And the book traces his journey from, believe it or not, a fact checker.
Wait, seriously? A fact checker?
Yeah. He started at the Heritage Foundation.
I never would guess that.
Right. It's wild. And he eventually ends up hosting Tucker Carlson Tonight, which becomes this ratings juggernaut, but also loses a bunch of advertisers because of,
His controversial content.
Yeah. The book talks about how he'd rail against, evil while also spreading lies about, say, Janet Yellen's stance on abortion.
Oh, wow.
It's like this weird mix of hypocrisy and outrage.
Yeah, that tracks. So how does he end up falling?
Well, the book argues that he basically built his audience on fear, constantly stoking outrage and division.
So he created this feedback loop where the more outrageous he got, the more his audience loved it.
Exactly. And he became, increasingly detached from reality.
I can see that.
There's this one anecdote in the book where protesters target Carlson's home, and he feels genuinely threatened.
Oh, wow.
And Stelter draws this parallel between that incident and Carlson's own use of fear-mongering tactics. He was creating the very environment that led to that attack.
That's deep. So did Fox try to rein him in at all?
They did, yeah. The book talks about how there were a lot of internal struggles over Carlson's rhetoric.
I bet.
Especially because he was losing advertisers.
Yeah, that'll get their attention.
For sure. And all this drama with Carlson, it was happening against the backdrop of, the Murdoch family saga.
Ah, yes, the Murdochs. Always a good time.
Chapter 3, the Murdoch family drama.
So what's the T on the Murdochs?
Well, the book really focuses on the rivalry between Lachlan and James, the two brothers.
Right, right. So what were they fighting about?
Basically, the future of Fox News.
Hmm.
James, the book portrays him as, like, increasingly disgusted with the direction the network was taking.
Yeah, he was pretty vocal about his disapproval.
He was. He felt that Fox was a threat to democracy and blamed Lachlan for its radicalization.
Wow.
Yeah. There's this quote from James in the book where he says, Fox hosts are spewing poison,
Ouch. So a pretty tense family dynamic.
to say the least. And that dynamic, it played out in a big way during the 2020 election.
Yes, Chapter 4, Fox News in the 2020 election. The good stuff.
Right. The book takes us inside Fox News as the election unfolds, and the tension is palpable.
I bet.
Like, businesses are boarding up in New York, everyone's bracing for unrest, and Lachlan Murdoch is sending these, like, anxious texts to Suzanne Scott,
What was he saying?
like, questioning why they haven't called Florida for Trump yet, trying to control the narrative.
Wow.
Yeah. And then, of course, there's the Arizona call.
Right, right. Fox called Arizona for Biden before anyone else.
Yep. And the book describes how that call, it basically enraged Trump and his supporters.
Yeah, they were furious.
And even within Fox, there was pushback.
Really?
Yeah. Brett Baer, for example, he was urging the network to retract the call,
Even if it was the right call.
even if it meant major egg for the network, as he put it in a text.
Wow. Talk about pressure.
Right. But Arnon Mishkin, the head of Fox's decision desk, he stood firm.
Good for him.
He said, it's not pride, it's math.
You love to see it.
I know, right? But after that call, things really started to shift at Fox.
How so?
Well, their coverage became, like, increasingly focused on sowing doubt about the election.
Even though they knew the claims were baseless.
Yeah. They gave airtime to, like, all these conspiracy theories about Dominion voting systems and Smartmatic.
It's like they were actively trying to undermine democracy.
That's the argument Stelter makes in the book.
It's pretty convincing.
It is. And that takes us into Chapter 5, The Rise of Conspiracy Theories and the Network of Lies.
So the book digs into how these conspiracy theories took hold.
It does. And it specifically calls out Maria Bartiromo for giving a platform to Sidney Powell.
Sidney Powell, the Kraken lady.
The one and only. And she just went on Bartiromo's show and made all these outlandish claims about election fraud with zero evidence.
Fox just let her.
Pretty much.
Wow.
What's even crazier is that Dominion actually tried to warn Fox about the spread of misinformation.
Really?
Yeah. They reached out multiple times, trying to set the record straight, but Fox basically ignored them.
That's wild.
It is. And it shows, like, how determined Fox was to stick to their narrative, even when presented with evidence to the contrary.
Yeah, they were all in on the big lie.
And the consequences of that decision, they were pretty devastating.
Yeah, January 6th.
Exactly.
So the book talks about January 6th.
It does. Chapter 6. The January 6th insurrection and the aftermath.
And what does it say about Fox's role in all that?
Well, it's pretty damning. It describes how some of the rioters actually cited Tucker Carlson as their source of information.
No way.
Yeah, like they believe that he would protect them.
Wow. That's scary.
It is. And the book also shares these panicked text messages from Brian Kilmeade to Trump aides,
What was he saying?
begging them to get Trump on TV to stop the violence. He even said, this is a disaster.
Wow. So even they knew it was bad.
Yeah. But even after the riot, Carlson tried to downplay its significance.
Of course he
He
did.
blamed the left, tried to shift the blame away from Trump and his supporters.
Classic Carlson.
And it's just one example of how Fox, even after January 6th, they continued to push this narrative that the election was stolen, even though they knew it wasn't true.
Yeah, they were really committed to that lie.
They were. And that commitment, it had some pretty serious consequences for the network.
Like what?
Well, their ratings started to decline, they lost advertisers, and they faced this massive lawsuit from Dominion.
Yeah, that lawsuit was a game changer.
It was. And it's just one of the many ways that the events of 2020 and its aftermath, they really shook Fox News to its core.
So what happened next? How did Fox try to navigate this new landscape?
Well, that's what we'll dive into in the next part of our deep dive. Stay tuned. The story's far from over.
Thank you for listening to Rambling Dan Rowe's Deep Dive Book Reviews. Please help support our channel by clicking the like and subscribe button. Thank you.
Can't wait. Yeah, so after January 6th, Fox News is like in this weird spot, right? And they've been riding this Trump wave for years. But now Trump's out of office, and their whole narrative, like, the election being stolen, it's falling apart.
Yeah, they're starting to face some real consequences.
Right. Declining ratings, advertisers pulling out, and of course the Dominion lawsuit hanging over their heads.
And Chapter 7 of the book, Fox News in the post-Trump era, this is where Stelter really dives into, like, how they try to adapt to this new reality.
So what do they do? How do they try to stay relevant?
Well, the book talks about how there were all these internal discussions about how to, like, revitalize the network.
Yeah, makes sense. They got to do something.
And some folks, like Jesse Waters, he was actually suggesting they hire some Trump people.
Really? So double down on the Trumpism, even without Trump.
It's like they were so addicted to the ratings boost they got from all the Trump chaos that they didn't know how to function without it.
Yeah, it's like an addiction, and withdrawal's a bitch.
Exactly. And all this is happening while the Dominion lawsuit is like this ticking time bomb.
Right, that thing's going to blow up eventually.
And in the meantime, Fox is desperately trying to control the narrative around the January 6th investigation.
Damage control mode activated.
They downplay its significance, they attack the committee, they basically try to discredit anyone who's trying to hold them accountable.
Trying to bury the truth under a mountain of spin.
Exactly. And then, boom, Chapter 8, the Dominion lawsuit and Fox's reckoning.
This is where the shit hits the fan.
Right. The lawsuit forces Fox to, like, open up their books, reveal all these internal communications. And it's not pretty.
What kind of stuff comes out?
Emails, text messages, all this stuff that shows how much they knew about the election lies.
And when they knew it?
Exactly.
Huh.
And one of the most shocking revelations is this admission from Rupert Murdoch.
What did the big boss have to say?
He basically admitted that he didn't personally believe the election fraud claims.
Wait, what? He let them air on his network, even though he knew they were bullshit.
Yep.
Why?
The book doesn't say explicitly, but it suggests that it was all about, like, ratings, profits, keeping their audience happy.
So they were willing to sacrifice truth for money.
That's the implication. Yeah. And in the end, it cost them.
How much?
They ended up settling with Dominion for $787.5 million.
Ouch. That's gotta hurt.
Yeah, that's a pretty big hit. And it sent shockwaves through the media industry.
For sure. It showed that spreading lies can have real consequences.
Exactly. And it also raised all these questions about media accountability, the power of misinformation, the state of our democracy.
Big questions.
Big questions. And then, right as Fox is reeling from the Dominion settlement, another bombshell drops.
Oh, what? No.
Tucker Carlson gets fired.
No way. Seriously?
Yep. Chapter 9, Tucker Carlson's departure and Fox's future.
What happened? Why'd they fire him?
Well, the book suggests that it was a combination of things, like his increasingly extreme views, his controversial stance on Ukraine, he was losing advertisers, he was becoming a liability.
So even for Fox, he was too much.
It seems that way.
Yeah.
And Carlson tried to spin it as, like, a result of the Dominion settlement, but the book argues that it was more complicated than that.
Interesting. So what did he do after he got fired?
He tried to launch his own show on Twitter.
Of course he did.
Like, he's trying to bypass traditional media and go straight to his audience.
Makes sense. He's got a huge following.
He does. And it's a reminder that the forces that fueled Fox's rise, like polarization, distrust, the appetite for outrage, those forces are still out there.
Yeah, they haven't gone away. They're just finding new platforms.
Exactly. And that's a pretty sobering thought.
It is.
But the book doesn't just leave us hanging with that, like, doom and gloom feeling.
No.
No. Stelter actually spends a good chunk of the last chapter talking about solutions.
Oh, that's good. Like, what can we actually do about this?
Exactly. And he highlights some pretty inspiring efforts. People who are, like, actively fighting back against this tide of misinformation.
Like who? Give me some hope here.
Well, for one, he talks about these media veterans who are actually challenging Fox News's broadcast license renewals.
Really? Wow, that's bold.
It is. They're arguing that Fox has violated the public trust and shouldn't be allowed to, keep broadcasting.
Huh. So they're trying to hold them accountable.
Yeah. And it's not just about Fox. It's about sending a message to, like, all media outlets that there are consequences for spreading lies.
Yeah, that's powerful. So what else? What other solutions does he talk about?
Well, he also highlights these grassroots organizations that are trying to, like, bridge the divide between left and right.
Yeah, trying to get people talking to each other again.
Exactly. Groups like More in Common and Braver Angels, they're doing some really interesting work.
I've heard of those. So they're not just about, like, fact-checking or debunking lies. They're about, like, building empathy, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like, helping people see each other as human beings, even if they disagree on certain issues.
Yeah, we could all use a little more of that these days.
For sure. And Stelter also mentions this filmmaker, Jen Senko, who made this documentary called The Brainwashing of My Dad.
I think I saw that. It's about, like, how right-wing media can, like, radicalize people, right?
Yeah. It's about her own dad, actually, and how he got sucked into this, like, echo chamber of misinformation.
Yeah, that's scary stuff.
It is. And it shows that this isn't just some abstract political problem. Like, it has real-world consequences for families, for relationships.
For sure.
And then there's this other interesting angle that Stelter explores how some Democrats are approaching Fox News.
Really? Like, what are they doing?
Well, instead of just ignoring it, some of them are actually going on Fox News to try to reach those viewers.
That's a risky strategy.
It is, but it's also like recognizing that you can't just preach to the choir. Like, you have to engage with people who disagree with you.
Yeah, it's true.
And Stelter specifically mentions Pete Buttigieg, who's been on Fox a few times.
Yeah, he's pretty good at staying calm under pressure.
He is. And it's like he's trying to show that Democrats aren't these, like, scary monsters that Fox makes them out to be.
And does it work?
It's hard to say, but at least it's a start.
Yeah.
And then there's AOC. She has a different approach.
Oh, yeah. What's she doing?
Well, she basically urges Democrats to, like, not get caught up in the Fox News outrage machine.
So ignore it.
Not necessarily ignore it, but, like, don't let it dictate the terms of the debate.
So focus on your own message? Don't get sucked into their drama.
Exactly. Like, focus on delivering results for people and let that speak for itself.
Yeah, makes sense.
And then on top of all that, Stelter points to some other hopeful signs.
Like what?
Like the rise of fact-checking websites, the growing awareness of media bias, especially among younger people.
Oh, yeah, that's encouraging.
It is, and more schools are teaching media literacy, how to, like, critically evaluate information.
We need more of that for sure.
We do. So yeah, it's a bleak picture in a lot of ways, but there are glimmers of hope.
Yeah, it's not all doom and gloom.
Exactly. And ultimately, that's what I took away from this book, that we all have a responsibility to, like, protect our democracy.
Yeah, we can't just sit back and let it crumble.
Exactly. We have to be informed, we have to be engaged, we have to call out lies when we see them, and we have to support the people and organizations that are fighting for truth.
Well said.
And if you're interested in learning more about all this, I highly recommend checking out Network of Lies by Brian Stelter.
Yeah, it's a real eye-opener.
It is. And it's a must-read for anyone who wants to understand, like, the forces that are shaping our world today.
Couldn't agree more.
So that's it for our deep dive into Network of Lies. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and keep asking questions.